All right, dude, you ready?
Let's go.
All right. Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the second episode of the First Things First podcast. The reason that we do this is we believe that if you keep the first things first, everything else falls into place. But as long as you replace the first things, then you risk losing everything. So, hey, second episode, Braz, what are we talking about today?
All right, so we're going to jump into why your why matters.
Okay, so we talked a whole lot about this idea of why. You mentioned it in our first episode a whole bunch. So What is a why? And why does your why matter?
Right. We could even rephrase it to be, what's the reason you do what you do?
Okay, that's
right.
Good.
I think the last time we said, hey, what gets you up at 4:30 in the morning, 4 o'clock in the morning when everybody's still asleep hitting snooze? You know, what gets you to the gym, you've already burned 800 calories by the first time the other people are still hitting the snooze button and haven't gotten up. You know, why do you do the things you do? Why are you driven to do what you do? So the first thing, you can't necessarily just start off with, hey, what's a why? But I can tell you what it's not.
Okay, let's go there.
And what most people think it is normally a goal. They normally have a goal. Hey, I want to lose weight. I want to make a lot of money. I want to grow my business. Hey, those are goals. Those aren't the why. The why is what's underneath those goals that drives you towards them.
Okay, break that down a little bit more.
Okay, so, let's just say, hey, I want to make a lot of money. That's a target.
Okay.
That's something that you've set out there that you're achieving to make money. Okay, now you have to ask yourself, though, why? Because if you come into any business, and I don't think this is real estate specific, I don't think it's just specific to entrepreneurs. It can be any business that you're doing. It doesn't matter what it is. Why do you get up and go into work every day? To make money. Okay, well, if that's the only reason you're doing it, that quickly fades.
It's good.
Right? Like that goes away. Anything that's a goal, because all of those goals aren't always attainable. You don't achieve that every single day. Now, you may punch a clock and you have a set wage, and that may be good enough for you. If it is, okay, then go accomplished. But for people who are in business leadership, people who are striving to be, quote unquote, successful in certain businesses, the strive looks different.
Okay.
Right? The strive looks different. And so if all you're thinking about is, I want to make money, well, what happens when a valley hits and there's no money? What do you fall back on? Well, if you can't fall back on a solid why you're doing what you're doing, it's real easy to quit.
Yeah, so what I've seen, and a lot of times, is most people focus on the what and not on the why. And it sounds to me like you're saying why is almost like your motive. Like it's like, hey, this is the thing that is driving me. What is just what you're doing? You know what I mean? It's your job title. It's the going to the gym. But you're trying to dive a little bit deeper. You're trying to say like, hey, it's not just going to the gym, but what is the reason? What is the purpose? What am I? What type of person am I pushing towards? Like a lot of times, I think that's what your why is related to. Is like, hey, who do I want to be? In making decisions in that direction, or like what kind of difference do I want to make? Would you say that those are fair?
Yeah, of course. And normally, like if you just break it down, a why kind of falls into a few different categories. It's an identity, it's a responsibility, it's a redemption, it's an impact, or it's a calling. Those are some of the different levels. So we're talking about something on a deeper level than just I want abs. I want money. I want to grow a business. Like that, you have to dig deeper into those things, and there's ways to go about doing that.
So, okay, would you say that your why maybe correlates or runs in the same direction as maybe in the church world we would say your purpose?
That's good. Yeah, I like that. So, to me, a why is kind of like an anchor. So it doesn't matter if you're in a peak, you're in a valley, things are going great, things are not so great, you have a million things going, you have nothing going, none of those things matter. The why is what keeps you anchored to continue on to do the things that you're doing, if that makes sense. So I've always kind of looked at a why as kind of like an anchor point. It keeps you from drifting about when things aren't going great. I think there's some scripture that are some reference points with that too. It keeps you from being tossed to and fro. We get tossed to and fro as human beings. Man, especially if you're in business or you're in some type of business leadership or you're trying to run your own business, any of those kind of things, it's real easy to get sucked into things that you start chasing different things and you forget what your why is. Maybe money's great for a while. Okay, well, let's evaluate why it was good, but let's also evaluate why do we continue to chase after that? Because there may be a point where that money's not there. Use the gym analogy. There may be a point where Christmas and Thanksgiving and birthdays and 4th of July and all these, all these things hit, man. And all of a sudden you step on the scales, the day after a day that you decided to eat a whole bunch and maybe drink a little more than you should have, and you've gained 7-8 pounds. You know what I mean? Okay, yeah. So what's getting us dialed back in at that point? Because a lot of people, what they do when things get rough, or you make a choice that causes something negative to happen, is we tend to start falling away from what our anchors are.
I'll tell you what that makes me think of. Your why it sounds like your why is always taking you to something you haven't done, or somebody you haven't been, or someplace you've never been, right? So it's that kind of thing. It's always futuristic. Our natural tendency, you said this several times, is to drift. Right? We say this all the time. You don't get where you want to accidentally. Like, it takes a lot of intentionality. You got to know what's driving you. You got to know what's pushing you. But if our natural tendency is to drift, it's always to drift towards something that we know, something that we're familiar with. So, like, use the biblical example, right? God leads Egypt out, or Israel out of Egypt, right? And he's taking them to the promised land. So he's taking them to something new. He's made promises to their forefathers and all that other stuff. And while they're following God, like, you got to imagine, like, there's a pillar of cloud by day, pillar of fire by, like, you very tangibly see God's presence.
Right.
And while they're following God, they're like, man, back in Egypt, we had bread. Back in Egypt, we had fish. Did you just bring us out here so we could die? Like, if we went back there, like, why? Because we are familiar with that. But we also forget, like, hey, we were slaves in that spot. And usually, if you don't know what you're going to, if you don't understand your why, you run back to places that you are maybe in bondage, either through laziness, or you got lethargic, or complacent, or those different things.
One of the things that what you just talked about makes me think of is we've done some, it's funny, like some of the stuff that we've studied in the course of trying to learn these kind of things. But the brain, like how your brain wants to take the path of least resistance.
Yeah.
And we talk about a lot of that kind of stuff in our trainings. But the brain wants familiar. The brain wants easy. The brain doesn't want something that's changed. The brain doesn't want something that's difficult to go after. It wants to fall back. So to create a new neural pathway that's difficult, you have to continue to do it because your brain, your body, everything that's within you is going to want to retreat. So you have to fight that and continue to move forward to create that new neural pathway. And now it becomes the norm. Discipline becomes the norm. You're chasing after your why, it becomes the norm, because it's not always going to be easy. And if you're not anchored in those kind of things, it's real easy to fall back into what's easy, the laziness, the not wanting to do, all of those kind of things.
So the science that you're talking about is called neuroplasticity.
Yeah.
And for the longest time, what people thought is like, hey, once you learn something, and you reach a certain age, your brain wouldn't change. And what we're finding out is it continually adapts. So this is what Scripture, we want to bring up Scripture, we want to talk about God and all these things. Romans chapter 12 says, don't be conformed to the patterns of this world, but be transformed. And this is what it says, by the renewing of your mind. And then it says, then you'll be able to discern God's perfect, pleasing will. Now notice, it said renew. It didn't say, hey, be transformed because I gave you a new mind.
Right.
To renew means to make new again. It's
good.
like this, we're remaking new highways, or we're making new highways in our brain that take us towards this new thing. So here's a question I want to ask you, because we keep talking about the why. We've talked about what it is. Mm-hmm. What would you say to somebody that came up to you and you're like, hey, listen, I hear you. I've been going through the motions. I've been stuck in the what for a really long time. I've been stuck in the what as a dad. I've been stuck in the what as a husband. I've been stuck in the what as an employee. How do I find my why?
That's good. So the first thing you have to do is you stop asking, what do I want? Like that's the first step. It's because it really, what you want is kind of in that too. But that's not the main question. The main question you have to ask is, what's going to bother me so much that I refuse to stay the same?
Okay, that's good.
What's going to bother me so much that I refuse to stay the same? And I'm willing to do whatever I have to do. And that can be anything, man. The gym, your family, better father, better husband, whatever it is, right? And then the next thing that you do is you start off with what you think your why is, and you do what's called the 5 levels deep test. 5 levels deep.
Okay, let's hear that.
Okay, so this is like being a 2-year-old to yourself. If any of you guys have 2-year-olds, you understand what I'm talking about, because you answer a question and the next question is what? Why?
Yeah.
And you answer that question and the next question is why?
Yeah, as a dad, I'm usually like, because I said so.
Because I said so, exactly. So what it starts with, so this is just an example, and I'm just going to use the real estate example because that's the one I'm most familiar with hearing people talk about. So it's like, okay, why did you get into real estate? It's usually one of two things. I want to make money, I want I want time freedom. And I think you can take that beyond real estate. And most people that are entrepreneurs, most people that are starting businesses themselves, that's kind of going to be somewhere in that realm. One of those two, some form or fashion of that. They don't want to punch a clock. They don't want to answer to anybody. They want to be their own boss. They want freedom, go to their kid's soccer game, whatever it is, right? So most people start off in real estate and they'll say that, hey, I want to make a lot of money. Okay, so then the next question you would ask is, well, why does financial freedom matter? Why do you even want that? Because I don't want to feel restricted or dependent. Okay, why does not feeling restricted or dependent even matter? Because I don't want to feel powerless. Okay, why does not feeling powerless matter? Because I want to be able to lead and be a better dad, be a better husband, be a better protector, be a better provider, whatever. So I don't want to feel powerless in that. Okay, so why does protecting and leading matter? Because I believe I'm called to build something that lasts longer than myself.
Oh, that's good.
Okay, so now you're getting closer. I still don't know, and it's not up to me to decide. It's going to be up to each person to decide. But you're a lot closer now with what started off as money to being, I want to leave an impact. That can be an impact for your kids. It can be a legacy for your kids. It can be better father, better husband. It can be, I want to impact people at my job. It can be, I'm not an entrepreneur, but I'm working wherever, and I want to be a better example to people. I want to be a leader that doesn't have a leadership role, an administrative role, but I want to lead people where I'm at. All of that stuff kind of goes together, and that's the kind of stuff that keeps you going when there's valleys.
How much would you say like personal giftings and all that would play even into your why?
Man, that's a good question, because I think, you hear people, obviously there's natural leaders. You can see it with kids. They'll be, man, your kid's a natural born leader. He does something and 5 other kids follow him. And, you see that from early on. So I do believe that there's some gifting in that, but I also believe that God doesn't call the equipped, he equips the called.
That's good.
So if you have a desire to want to lead people, you have a desire to want to lead by example. Maybe it's not necessarily always with your words. We got that deal hanging up in our office that says, always share the gospel, use words if you must.
Yeah.
Right? So an example, you can be an example to people. And I promise you, man, if that is what you're in alignment with, because I know we talked a lot about that last time too, and I think all of this stuff goes hand in hand with that. When you're in alignment with the calling, and God's put a calling on each one of us. We just talked about this Wednesday at church. God has a calling for everybody. Everybody has a place that's a believer that wants to edify the body, move the kingdom forward. Everybody plays a part in that. It doesn't matter how small a part. I was thinking about that as we were going through it. If my pinky knuckle was no longer there, I play guitar. Yeah. There'd be some notes I can't play now. You know what I mean? So the pinky knuckle even plays a role in that. So I don't know that it's necessarily a gifting, because I believe that God has gifted each one of us in some way. And it may not always be to speak. It may not always be to not speak. But he doesn't equip. He doesn't call the equipped. He equips the called. And I firmly believe that.
That's good. I'll tell you something that motivated me. One of the things that drives me is I want to be the type of leader that always invests in people and draws out the best in them. Like that's what drives me. I love leadership. And one of the things that I heard is that if we're going to be leaders, then we need to be learners. That's good. So, whatever it is that you feel like maybe your why is like, hey, go learn in that specific area. Learn from people that are already doing it. You know what I mean? Surround yourself by people that are further than you. And then here's a big one. Show up. Ask questions, like ask them to meet, ask questions, and put your cell phone in your pocket. And give them your full attention and just sit there and learn and say, hey, listen, this is what drives me. Is this what drove you? And what are some pointers that I could take away? The other side of this that I think that this is super crucial in is like we're talking about why in a very personal level. Like one, as an individual, you need to learn your why. But I think this goes even beyond that. Like I think a why is impactful at an organizational level. Because there's so many times like, okay, I work for a church. Right. And in our church, we've got like a tech team and a production and a worship and youth and all of these different things. Right. And each of those ministries need to know why their ministries matter. And as a leader, they need to communicate that. Like, hey, I was meeting with a guy today who heads up our production. I was like, hey, why does the production team matter? He says, because we reach the unreachable because they can't come to church. I was like, man, when is the last time you told you, like, that would get me so pumped up if I'm on the production team and I find out, like, hey, I may feel like if I just focus on the what I'm pushing buttons, just so that YouTube looks good.
Right.
But now there's intentionality between the buttons that I push. There's intentionality between adjusting the faders, I also heard a pastor say this, that keeping your why, the way to keep your why in front of people is, he would say that storytelling is your superpower. So I'll give you an example. We had a baptism service not long ago, and in our baptism service was this little girl. Well, this little girl has been coming to our church because her grandmother's been bringing her. And she's been going to Loft Kids and diving into that, and that led to her getting baptized, getting saved, getting baptized. Well, then come to find out that because she got baptized, her dad's now interested, and I believe attended church last week for the very first time.
It's good.
So like if I'm a Kidman pastor, I'm like, listen, you guys need to hear this story because of what you guys have poured into her is trickling up.
Yeah.
And it's making a difference.
It's good.
So I think, I'll ask you one more question, and then I think it's about time for us to wrap up. Because you talked about alignment with your why. Mm-hmm. How do you know that you're misaligned with your why? And if you are misaligned, how do you adjust?
So really the only way I can even answer that, and this is from experience. So I can only speak from the experience of like a believer. And that's, because I've been a believer for a long time, but I haven't always walked in alignment. So for me, man, that's a good question there, Matt Cordova. I feel it in my spirit.
Okay.
So if I'm not in alignment and hitting on all the cylinders of my why and hitting on all the cylinders of what I need to be doing and chasing after people for Christ, putting God first, not putting myself first, putting my wife first before myself. If I'm doing those things and I'm walking in alignment with what he's already said is in his alignment, then my life seems to be better. Doesn't mean that there's not valleys. Doesn't mean bad things don't happen. Doesn't mean tragedy can't happen. That's not what I'm talking about. But I think we talked a little bit last week about like boulders on the shoulder. If you're walking in alignment with God in your why, boulders fall off.
Oh, that's good.
There are valleys still. I mean, we live in a fallen world. There's still valleys. But walking through those is different if you're in alignment than if you're walking through those and you're carrying boulders. So God takes those boulders. He doesn't say it's going to be easy. In fact, he says we're going to have trouble here. But he's going to be with us. And if you're in alignment with what he's already said in his word, you're in alignment with what you've identified as your why, walking those hand in hand, the boulders fall off, man.
That's good.
Like that's the only way I know how to put it. And I know when I've carried the boulders, I know when I've turned my back on what the word says. I know when I've put myself first. Those are the times when those valleys, you put yourself in those valleys and it's rough. Doesn't mean that God's not going to be there when you turn right back around to him. But if you put yourself in those situations, man, a lot of times knowing that you're not in alignment, it's a more difficult journey.
Yeah, and I know when I have forgotten my why, when burnout starts to feel like a real thing.
Yeah.
Because I heard somebody say this one time, is we don't burn out because of the workload. We burn out because we forget why we're doing it. So maybe that's a measuring stick, man. It's like, hey, when I feel like the boulders are on, then I'm probably depending more on me than maybe the thing that God has put inside of me. And for in the burnout example, if I feel like I'm burning out, I heard a pastor say this one time. This is crazy. Okay, he's a pastor in Hawaii burning out, and he wrote this book. He's like, listen, I'm literally writing from the place that pastors go when they burn out. And this is the phrase that he said that has stuck with me. He said, God at the end of our life is not going to judge us on all that we can do, but all that he's called us to.
That's good.
And that's what the why does. The why takes you from all of this, and it takes you into a straight path. Well, Braz, I think it's a great landing spot for today. So, hey, we just want to thank you guys for joining us for episode 2 of the First Things First podcast. Listen, there's a couple things we'd love for you to do. Man, we would love you to subscribe. We'd love for you to like it. And then if you think that this would bless somebody, man, please share it. We want this to go and bless and be an encouraging word, or maybe just a redirecting thing for all people. So the reason that we do this podcast is we believe that if you keep the first things first, everything else falls into place. And when you replace the first things with second things, you have a tendency to lose everything. That's all we got this week. We'll see you next time.